All right, that didn't go as smoothly as I was hoping it would. Sorry. Still have to work all that out. Got to figure out the nuances of starting and stopping and beginning and ending and all that. Anyway, yeah, gratuitous car shot. Not necessarily intentional. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's whatever this will turn out to be. Let me bring some stuff up here so I have everything ready to go. Now, I found 5 tweets that I had done, some of them quite a while ago, back in November of last year, a couple from June, one from October of last year, another one from June of this year. Wow, 1 from October, 2 from November of last year, and 2 from June this year. Dealing with a bunch of different things, but they're all kind of related to what we're talking about, as far as the elections and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go through those. They're not really ones that get a lot of attention because they're not normal things, but I think it's important that we take a look at them and understand what they are and what they do, and the importance of what it potentially could be. So anyway, hey Alan, good to see you here. Rapunzel, you know the thing. Hello, Richie, Damon, good to have you, Damon. Stephanie, Dennis, hello. No further objections. Oh, there we go. Rabbit leaders here. We can all begin now. We got everything. We got our squadron of rabbits, hopefully not raining rabbit pellets down on our heads as they fly over. Let's go over here. Head to my share screen here. More gratuitous car shots, I hope. Not, probably. We'll take a look at this here. Now, this first one, and I'm not really going to necessarily take these in any order that make any sense, so bear with me on that. I'm just going to go in the order that they present themselves to me here. This one specifically is about terms that the media uses. One of the things that you're going to find out is that, and I even did a tweet about this earlier today, or maybe it was last night, I don't know, it all runs together, where they had tweeted something that was, Twitter, that's what it was. Twitter is now saying that, they're censoring Trump, and they're saying, official sources indicate that this is not true. Well, you click on that link and you go read their official sources, and their official sources are like the AP and Reuters and MSNBC. Those are their official sources. Well, what the hell? So you can't, when any media source or anybody says official sources or sources or unnamed sources, they want you to think that it's somebody that's important, but often or not, it's some janitor or, somebody that has absolutely no say whatsoever in how things go. So this one, senior administration officials, is another one that gets thrown out there. You're undoubtedly thinking it's going to be someone like Pompeo or Giuliani or someone else with equal gravitas or name recognition. Don't be fooled. Long odds that this is media speak for senior executive services, or SES, a complete high-level branch of government that is neither elected nor accountable via our Constitution. In fact, their very existence is anti-constitutional. So who are they? Well, they are the lifelong bureaucrats who infest our nation's capital at all levels of government. They are staffers, lobbyists, and other people of unelected rank who can and do exert undue influence over governance. Make no mistake, these people are the deep state. When they talk about deep state, this is the majority of that body as far as within the government. Not necessarily within, say, the CIA or the military or different areas like that. But as far as within the body of government, these are the people, the non-elected, the staff, the senior staffers and administration officials and stuff that you hear. So when you hear the media, an arm of the deep state, talking about these administration officials and leakers and whistleblowers, realize that it's the deep state interviewing the deep state, i.e., whatever they're saying should be viewed with an extremely jaundiced eye. Because the deep state wouldn't be pulling out every stop to keep itself from facing extinction, now would it? And make no mistake about it, Trump represents an existential threat to the deep state because they have another name, the swamp. And Trump has vowed to do what? Drain the swamp. And that's exactly what he is doing. And that's exactly why all these stories and books and rumors about negative Trump image are coming out. The swamp has to win in 2020 or they're done for good. Now keep in mind, I wrote this a year ago. You are watching a cornered animal that knows it's done. Here we go. I guess I did call it. Expect the vitriol and crazy to reach a pitch never before seen in the next year. Don't let your faith waver. Patriots are in control. This is the dying last full body spasm of the swamp. It'll be ugly, it'll be loud, but in the end, it'll be glorious. Basically, what we're going to be, it's going to be a return of the power to the people, a return of the constitutional republic, the republic for which we stand. Where we go on, we go all. We're going back to the original Constitution. That's where we're heading. Now, let me get into the deep state, the senior executive services, a little bit more. One clarification, the media and bureaucracy spoken of are parts of the deep state swamp. There are other parts in intelligence, business, Hollywood, military, which I didn't put on there, that all work hand in hand together. A look at Epstein flight logs should show how broad their influence is. Basically, anybody that's involved with Epstein or is in Epstein's flight logs could be and should be considered part of the deep state apparatus. Whether they're a government, individual, Hollywood insider, it doesn't matter. They're all part of the same group. Another name for them is the cabal. We've got many names for them. It's a many-headed snake, and we have very many names for them, and we're just using some of them. But as always, there are people in those industries who are patriots. So we have to be careful about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And if you're not familiar with that phrase, basically what it means is that you can't just take and throw everything out because one part of it is bad. You have to sift and sort and keep the important stuff with and keep the good while throwing out the bad. I mean, you don't want to throw away the baby, you want to throw away the bathwater. So that's where it came from. Good versus evil. Well, okay. Not all are bad or good. Both exist everywhere. Good versus evil is a real measurement and really the deciding factor in determining who is part. Uh-oh, I did that wrong. There we go. Who is part of the deep state swamp and those patriots doing their jobs without malice. And that's going to be exceptionally important going forward. We have to be able to distinguish between patriots and those who are truly part of the deep state and truly evil. Not everybody is bad. Not everybody is good. And it's criminal to just lump good people in with the bad without having some sort of real proof or at least some indicators that there could be some issues. We just can't say, well, that person knows this person, therefore. Now, there has to be something more than that. Now, I mean, if like Hillary Clinton and you see 62 dead people around her, you start to question things like that. But, there's plenty of other reasons for Hillary to be questioned out there that we don't need to necessarily figure it out. So anyway, couple more SCS related tweets and threads to fill in that particular picture more fully. I don't think this is going to be around anymore. Yeah, he got banned since then. That was an old Wyatt tweet, I think. Okay, now this one is something that I want to. This was a tweet I was looking for earlier, and it has disappeared off my pinned tweets. Senior executive service. If you don't know who they are, time to learn. They're the most powerful part of the government that is never elected, has no checks and balances, is not in our Constitution. Below, senior executive service flag. This is a senior executive service flag. Notice the keystone right in the center. And again, there's another one of those keystone hits that we're so fond of finding. The stars that go around, I believe this is 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 stars. And then it's the tasseled flag. The tasseling means it's part of a greater piece. Now, this is the European Union flag. This one only has 12 stars, but it's exactly the same coloration, exactly the same format without the keystone in the center. And this is a picture of the Democratic debate. And everybody, somebody foolishly did a pentacle in the middle of this and tried to pass it off as what they did, which totally took away the importance of what was really there, which is this halo of stars above them. Notice no American flag, not one reference to the United States of America or anything like that. But you have this halo of stars, which is exceptionally similar to everything that we're looking at here. So the pentacle, I think, was put out by a deep stater to draw attention away from this fact right here, because this is the critical thing. So, gee, guess who's not even on that stage? Sleepy Joe. Amazing. That must have been like when they had two different debates. Nasty's been doing a huge tweet dig on Lord Mallorca Brown. Somebody else mentioned him today. He's been doing a lot of work on the deep state and the hidden black nobility. Apparently, this was on his old account, so it's worth going and digging. I mean, this tweet's old enough. Look at this. Look at how many different people have been suspended. I mean, these are all C3 is the only one that hasn't been suspended, and me, I guess, in that time, in that past year. Isn't that just ridiculous? Doesn't that tell you how bad this whole thing is? Because they're all these people have been suspended in that time frame. Just stupid. So now you know a little bit more about the senior executive services and who and what they are. I really wish I had a chart that I could show you, and there might be one out there, and I haven't found it, that shows where they kind of slot in. But they're pretty much like the cabinet members and stuff like that. They're all up there, in the hierarchy, and they're all of Obama's czars were these people. They were unelected, just appointed. The senior executive services grew to its largest under Obama. It's kind of been there for, I don't know who founded it. It was in the 70s or 80s. It might have been founded by Carter, and that might have been Carter's contribution to the deep state and the cabal, was him getting the senior executive services going. So, okay, now this one is another interesting one. This was one I did June of this year. It's an interesting thought based on what we're seeing with the riots and things like that, and how that's going to affect everything locally. The swamp is not just federal; it's also state and local as well. Your towns and your counties have got low-level swamp creatures that are in there that are, they're there for the grift, they're there for the game, and they're not there for your good or anybody's good but their own. So we need to kind of be aware of that, because at some point that this is going to turn into a fight at the local levels, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to be prepared for that, and we need to be working on that. because we're going to have to take back control of this somehow, some way. So this evening's thought, based on Q drops, we always knew that Trump was draining the federal swamp. But less has been said, let alone hinted at, about our own local swamps at the state, city, town, county level. The assumption was that we, as active participants in our republic, would deal with it by voting, which we still will, and as soon as the election process is cleared up, which is happening right now, thank God, we'll be able to start draining the swamp locally. And yes, we know the swamp is much bigger than that. We know it's worldwide. We realize that. That's why the European Union has the same flag as the Senior Executive Service, because it's an indicator of a worldwide thing. Think of the rings of Saturn. It encompasses the whole world. In fact, it may be a Saturn reference, another one of their local references that they like to use. Kind of like the Nike swoosh or things like that are definitely directly related to, Saturn. The assumption was that we as active participants in our republic would deal with it by voting. But I think we are going to get very large helping hand from POTUS to get the ball rolling and the most egregious offenders handled. Let's look at the cloak and dagger going on with all the protests. Now, again, this is back when the protests started really ramping up and were very obviously not protests. Almost all the major Democrat-held cities have had riots so far by declaring Antifa a terrorist organization. Trump has also set a huge trap for the aiding and abetting crew. Now, let me minimize this for a minute, and I'm going to take just a second. I hadn't planned on doing this, but I will do it because I can. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about, what I mean by Democrats rioting and their effect. Some of you, I'm starting to overwhelm Google Earth here. Oh, that's why, because I had the ley line grid on. Okay. Let me turn off my dumb map. Okay, now everybody remember the map that came out about, 4 months ago, having to do with Purdue, or Princeton it was, I'm sorry, and they were talking about the Riot Map. Okay, let me make that so it's a little bit more visible for everybody here. Okay. This map was a map that was put out by Princeton, I believe. And demonstrations associated with Black Lives Matter by demonstration type. Now, demonstration type, yellow is riots, blue is protests, or green, or whatever you want to call it. We'll call it green here. Blue, turquoise, seafoam, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So you can see, and the whole point of this map was for them to prove that these protests weren't violent. Well, what they actually proved to themselves is that majority of them were. If you look at all of these, all the larger protests have turned violent. All of them have a yellow dot in the middle of them, and some of them have nothing but a yellow dot. Portland in particular, but Seattle, Spokane, Salt Lake City, northern and southern Cal, Vegas, Phoenix. Not even sure where that is in New Mexico. Denver and South. All over the place. It looks like the U.S. has a bad case of riot acne. Now, what I'm going to do is I don't have the current election results. I will need to look into that, but I do have 2016 election results by county. Now, I'm going to lay it like that so it's a little bit easier to see. And as you can see, it's pretty easy to tell, especially if you start to zoom in on these areas here, that almost all of these are in blue areas. There's some that are in red or in pinkish area, which is kind of a blend. But all the major ones and all the major riots are in blue areas. Even zoom in here, you can see that this is blue down in through here. Okay. So there's a lot of real misbehavior going on here. And I'm not talking about, yes, I'm not going to disagree that most were stage actors not rioting, but I don't care if they're paid actors breaking windows and setting fire to shit, or if they're just disgruntled people breaking windows and setting fire to shit. They're breaking the law, period. Okay. So to me, they're rioters. I don't care. I don't care if they're paid to do it or if they're doing it because they truly felt that it was the right thing to do. You know, Martin Luther King was able to affect huge social changes by peaceful demonstrations, and he was able to do so over a period of many years. Gandhi was also another one. There's ways of doing it without stooping to this crap. So this crap is nothing but, here, let me go take some sneakers home to my family. Oh, hey, look, a new big screen. I bet I can sell that for some money. Yeah, I mean, come on. Don't tell me that any of this. In fact, I can prove it's not about anything other than, let's look. I've got a nice little one called poverty rates right here. So let's look at the riots in relation to poverty rates. Now, pink is poverty rates. Okay. Green is non-poverty. There's a whole lot of non-poverty in the U.S. and there's a whole shit ton of rioting all over the country in non-poverty areas. Now, admittedly, there's some down here in the Southeast, and that's fine. But what this says is that it has nothing to do with economic influence. It has everything to do with outlook. With are you in it for yourself or are you in it for the greater good? I think this tells you everything you need to know. So, getting back away from that. Where was I here? Okay. So, almost all the Democrat-held cities have had riots so far, shown by what I just showed you. Okay. By declaring Antifa a terrorist organization, Trump has also set a huge trap for the aiding and abetting crew, meaning mayors, governors, city council members, all those folks, police chiefs, all of those, okay? Namely, funding and or organizational help lands you in a whole heap of hurt. We've seen this play out before with those who financed Al-Qaeda. So they followed the monetary strings and went after those people. Because, Matt, the Insurrection Act hasn't been employed yet because it is not time. POTUS needs to get through this election period and get this portion exposed and get even more. You got to think about it. It's about optics, okay? If POTUS were to go in, say, June when I wrote this, and he had the information back then, he could have done this. He could have done the Insurrection Act, could have done all this, could have gotten all this stuff. Half the country would have erupted in flames in legitimate protest about him overstepping his bounds. Okay. The timing is not right. Timing is everything. This is not about, waiting for, it's not about appeasing us as quickly as possible. It's about doing it the right way, legally, and with as little damage as possible to everybody else. Okay. So all that's a lot of what you're seeing is kabuki theater. It's allowed to happen because it needs to happen, because it's a way of waking the normies. It's how you force people to open their eyes. So don't think that. On one hand, I'm saying that this is an opening for Trump to be able to wrap these people up based on their crimes. But on the other hand, I'm saying that some of these crimes are allowed to happen because it's necessary for them to happen so that we can wake up everybody. And people have a hard time understanding that. It's a fairly complex idea. It's not just a simple one-line thing. It's multi-layer thinking. And Trump is definitely capable of it. And the military intelligence is definitely capable of it as well, and we need to be aware of that's what's going on. We can't just assume that it's a single thing. But the election has to be. I'm not going to say certified, but I'm going to say that the election has to be resolved mostly before they can move forward. I would not expect to see any of this stuff happen prior to that happening. So anyway. So later, after all their ties to Antifa and or BLM or whoever else we want to discuss. Now, let's not forget that we know that Antifa has ties to ISIS because we've got pictures of Antifa training with ISIS in the Middle East. I mean, they were flying both flags proudly in the desert, showing themselves standing there with their AKs training. So, I mean, this is something that we have to be, again, aware of and recognize all these connections and realize where it's going. It's just, you got to pay attention to all this stuff. All these little bits and pieces that show up over here and over here and over there. We've got to learn to kind of file in the back of our head, and then eventually click, it pops into place and goes with these other pieces that show up. So anyway, so after all their ties to Antifa come out, all of these Democratic mayors, council members, state assembly members, sheriffs, et cetera, will get unceremoniously rounded up, charged, tried, and imprisoned for their part in the destruction they allowed. And they will be. It's going to be, I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to say it's going to be after not the inauguration. I don't think he's going to move on anything until after that. But we'll see how it all plays out. It could be different. I mean, I'm just saying that's what my own expectation is. I don't have any real solid evidence that says that, but just based on my belief structure and how I've seen things play out. And you're absolutely right, David. Secretary of State and Attorney General positions are heavily bought by Soros, and I probably think DA positions are as well. And any of those that are connected to the funding are going to get rounded up. They're going to get snatched up too. I live in Washington, as most of you do or don't know, and I'm just dying for the day when 99% of the people that are in office here in the western part of the state are gone because of their corruption. And, it'll leave a big vacuum, but it'll hopefully be filled by patriots and people that want to do it right. And everybody has to look at this way. I love how Trump plays these fools. He sets them up in an ideological trap and they fall for it every time. Trump is so many steps ahead of these guys, it's not even funny. They don't even know what's coming. Now, part of it's designed that way, but part of it is also they really are that stupid. These people are stupid. So sit back and watch this coming week's events, knowing that POTUS is safe. We are as safe as they can make us, and we are heading towards the greatest time in human history. And that still holds true today. And as always, thank you for reading, blah, blah, blah. You all know about that. I say it often enough. Okay, let's see here. Let's talk about this one. This one's kind of fun. This is one I wrote back in October of last year. October and November, I guess I was on a roll about certain things. Sorry, I need a drink of water there. Okay, this is a post I feel I need to make to clarify some things about loyalty and ownership in Congress. Congress critters, sorry, just the snark coming out there, swear an oath of loyalty to the USA and its Constitution, to uphold said Constitution. I think that's what that says, but no, I typed it wrong. No, well, sorry. Usually sworn on a sacred book of some sort, most often a Bible. This oath indicates that they are loyal to the USA and its constituents and to the Constitution, which I didn't put in there. Now, when money starts flowing in from other sources, be it corporations, countries, anywhere really, it creates a problem of divided loyalties. Are you loyal to your oath, or are you loyal to where the bread is? Now, we're going to be looking at this, and we got to realize that these people make, what, $130 $30,000 a year, $150,000 a year. I mean, depending on where you are. In DC, that's not a lot of money. In San Francisco, that's not a lot of money. Hell, in Seattle, that's not a lot of money. But in other parts of the country, that's, royalty type money. But it's still comfortable living anywhere in the country other than a few select spots that are so far off the map that doesn't even count. So do you think these people are going to be loyal to that money, or are they going to be loyal to the millions that they're getting from these other people? Now, I think that's pretty easy to determine. I really do. I really think that it's very easy to determine where their loyalty is going to lie. I get a great deal on a multi-million-dollar house. I pay pittance for it. I get all these great things. I get stock options. I get benefits. I get all this stuff. And all I have to do is kind of make these decisions that are based on my better thought process that's not influenced by this money. Really? I mean, come on, we know better. So these people are not going to be loyal to the Constitution. They're going to be loyal to their pocketbooks. They're going to be loyal to their families and what they see is benefiting them the most. Another way of viewing it is ownership. If you have accepted money in any way from an outside source, you now owe that source something. It's like doing a favor. If you ask somebody for a favor, and then in a lot of cases, the expectation is that you owe that person a favor back. Well, it's the same thing here. And this one is kind of like asking a loan shark for a favor, because you not only do you get your favor, but then you owe them back with interest, and lots of interest. And it's usually a dear price to pay. So, you can't remain loyal. You now owe that source something: a favor, a vote, consideration, information, secrets. There's so many things. That person now owns, the source now owns the person accepting a value, meaning whoever gave the money is the one that now owns that person. The U.S. Constitution doesn't own that person. The people of the country do not own that person anymore. The person who is supplying the money has now leveraged those people so that they're now owned. Joe Biden, perfect example. China. Who is Joe Biden's owner? It sure shit isn't the Constitution. It isn't the U.S. population in public. It is China, because that's who has put him in the position of power. That's who's funded him. That's who's funded his family. I mean, there's no question about it. By the way, everybody, Tombstone Graffiti in the chat here is a gentleman who so graciously let me use his music for my intro that I totally muffed up, but it's great music. Give him a like and a follow. He's got a YouTube channel too. Awesome guy, great music, and a real patriot. So please feel free to say hi to him and give him a follow, and buy some of his albums, because it's actually some good music. I'm not saying that just because he was nice enough to give it to me for free. So anyway, and yes, Rabbit Leader is my official Rabbit Squadron leader. So if you have a rabbit in your avatar or name or something, Rabbit Leader is the leader. You just have to accept that. We'll just go there. Now, this is why people of a certain moral standard should be considered for elected office. They have to be able to resist that temptation for personal gain and to do what's right for their country and constituents, period. You have to, and that's why we've, the spurious reason why people are always looking at the, the sexuality or the, the sexual deviancy of these people, or, are they having affairs or not? Or, 10 dozen or a million other things. I mean, it's it's about the type of person that that person is. Are they a person of integrity? Are they a person of, are they going to do what they say they're going to do? You know, I mean, it doesn't really matter what their personal life is, because ideally that doesn't matter, but in some cases it does. And that's why people like to see that, is because they think they can form a basis of opinion based on that person, based on how they behave in their outside life. So we need to make sure that we're electing people that have a certain ethical standard. Um, we can divide the line between moral and ethical, but anyway, and yeah, absolutely, I can put his channel in the title credits. Title credits, huh? I can put him in the comments. I guess that's what you mean. And his Twitter handle, is, I believe, Tombstone Graffiti. So he should be there. He actually has, I believe, tombstonegraffiti.com is his website as well. And he's got all of his stuff there too. So, oh, that's right. It's Studio 42. My apologies. Okay. Another pitfall was found this week by Miss Hill. Now, this is back when we had our Democratic, new freshman Democratic person who was filmed or photographed naked combing a staffer's hair. So that's what kind of prompted this. In her case, it was minor, as there was no foreign entity involved. But could you imagine if someone, say the Chinese, oh, hey, there we go, a year ago, I called the Chinese, got a hold of these? Easy manipulation target. And that's exactly the kind of thing that the Chinese do. I mean, the thing that people have got to realize is that the Chinese have been manipulating and dealing with courtly matters for millennia. The Chinese Empire goes back something like 5,000, 6,000 years. It goes back a long, long time, and they've kind of mastered the courtly behaviors and stuff like that. So, when you hear the term courtly behaviors, you think, oh, that's, the elegance and well, yeah, but it's also the intrigue and the backstabbing and the bribing and the corruption and all that stuff. And the Chinese court was known for this. This was their thing. They were really known for all that crap. You've got there's the Order of the Blue Button and the Order of the Red Button, and there's some other ones too that if you do some research on them, you realize just how hugely corrupt they were. Confucius was kind of part of that whole thing. He was part of the Chinese court. So the Chinese have this. It's something. I mean, we're 250 years old as far as the country goes. And even if we include some of our European roots, we're what, 1,500 years old, 2,000 years old. We're talking about a country that's been around as China for about 5,000 years. Okay. So, I mean, I have a lot of respect for the Chinese and a lot of respect for some of the Chinese thought processes and behaviors. But when it comes to their courtly practice and their game playing and their ability to manipulate and coerce and trap people, I have no respect for that at all. But they are absolute masters at it, and we are fools if we do not understand and believe that. So that's why I'm kind of illustrating this a little broader than I did in the thread, because I think people need to understand this and understand the potential effect it could have on anybody. I mean, can you imagine some rookie congressman getting in there and getting wrapped up in, some of this deep state crap, and boom, they've got all this documentation and all these bribes and stuff on them? I think we're going to find out that the majority of the deep state has been China, and that things like Wexner and Epstein and Hugh Hefner and all this, most of the money was coming through China. Now, I'm not saying China itself is the problem. They were just the focal point and the funneling point for the funding. But because remember, a lot of our money was going to China too. You know, and then this has all been funded by our own money. I mean, this is all funded by U.S. taxpayer money, which should just frazzle everybody. I mean, all this deep state bullshit that we're seeing, completely and totally funded by our taxpayer money. So that's trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that have been just pissed away on their thing that has been fleeced from us. Yeah, that kind of irritates me. It should irritate everybody. So anyway, back to this. There are reasons to look for people of upstanding moral and ethical fortitude to elect into office. Please notice this is not D versus R. This is not about left versus right. This is about good people versus bad people. Good and bad. That's it. Both kinds of people are on both sides of the aisle. I will say that it seems there's more good people on the red side than the blue side. It does seem that the ratios are probably flipped, you know, but that doesn't mean that all are good or all are bad in either case. It means that you have to take each case individually, which we should be doing anyway. Black nobility set up the CCP. Yes, the Chinese Communist Party is the current very corrupt state there. Mao was backed by Western money, if I remember correctly, much like the Bolsheviks were, although we can tie the Bolsheviks directly to some things because they were Khazarian Jews, but that's a whole nother topic that we're not going to get into here. Although with Damon here, we probably could go into it and you'd all leave with a headache. Connection between the CIA and the Catholic Church. Well, the CIA is primarily occupied by Jesuits, people who came from the Jesuit schools. So, I mean, it's a pretty apparent connection there. But if you're better off not thinking of it as a Catholic Church. You're better off of thinking of it as the Holy Roman Empire, because that's really what it is. And the black nobility pretty much took over the Holy Roman Empire in what, 12 or 1300, David? Or was it a little bit later? You know, David will type up here in a minute or two. There's a delay between when I talk and when you guys hear it. So anyway, I'm going to move on to the next one here. And Damon, by the way, is if you guys aren't following him, he goes by Wolf on Mr. Wolf on Twitter. I forget your exact tag. It's Damon Riddle or something. Follow him. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's blows me away with his depth of knowledge in certain areas. So, I mean, he's just a phenomenal follow. Do I know how the observatories fit into the riot trafficking lines in China? What observatories are you talking about? Are you talking like the different, like, I can't even think of the name of the big one down in California and down in LA there. Yeah, Damon Riddle 3. There we go. You mean where they like have telescopes and stuff like that, Jane? Kind of wish we could do this as a live chat where everybody was in the meeting and we just talk, but maybe someday I'll try that. Okay, so the ones that have the telescopes and stuff. I'm sure observatories are potential trafficking lines. I wouldn't necessarily make a flat statement about them because they're usually in fairly sparsely populated areas. Well, pardon me. Mainly because they have to be for light pollution, so that they can see better. So they're usually a little bit more remote, which is a good thing for trafficking because they're not as observed. But on the flip side, they're remote, so they would have to be getting people from elsewhere to bring there. So I haven't heard anything about observatories. Trafficking lines in China, we know that they're tied hand in hand. So that's not something that's new. basically a lot of that comes through the port. Remember when Q told us to watch for Long Beach port? Well, Long Beach was a direct tie to China. Seattle and Tacoma also. Seattle and Tacoma ports together make up the second largest China port on the West Coast. And that's where we also have huge trafficking lines through here. If we go back to Google Earth here, I take this stuff off and I put up, this is a human trafficking heat map, which, funny enough, I just realized yesterday was generated by Palantir. So, anyway, I guess I'll trust the info. I believe this was generated off of the Polides human trafficking map. I could be wrong about that, though. But if you'll notice that all the coast regions, sorry guys, are hugely overrun with trafficking. I mean, there's not one coast region that's not really just hugely affected by it. So, in Long Beach, Port of Long Beach is down. Yeah, it's down south. I mean, look at how bad this is down here. We got Seattle, Tacoma, which is Seattle here. Tacoma's down here. Oops, right there. So, I mean, you've got those two ports together, which equal the whole thing. And we could also talk about I could get into the coastline and all this stuff up here, but that's a whole nother thread in and of itself here about Washington. So, but yeah, I mean, anywhere you've got coastline, you've got the potential for human trafficking. Now, this is also a major north-south corridor that this line follows, which is the I-5 corridor. So that's also a bad one. But, and you've got the same issues over here on the East Coast too. You've got major north-south corridors. You've got major ports all along the Gulf Coast, all along the Atlantic coast here. So, I mean, it's just, plus it's all population centers. So, anyway, there's just a lot of things and a lot of places, and we just all have to be aware of it. I mean, it all ties in together. It all matches together. It all blends together. There's just not one thing that we can point to that says here's the problem. It's here's the problems. So give me a second here. I got to take a sip of tea. Okay, next one I'm going to hit, cause célèbre. Now, this was a phrase that popped up, back in June, and caused quite a bit of a stir, but I ended up with my own interpretation on it, like I usually do. I can tend to do things my own way. What does it mean? What happens when you add coup to the end of it? What the heck does that even have to do with today's events? Read on to discover how crucial this bit of verbiage is to our present-day situation. And let's go to the Wikipedia definition of cause célèbre. Is an issue and incident arousing widespread controversy, outside campaigning, and heated public debate. Does that sound familiar at all? The term continues in the media in all senses. It is sometimes used positively for celebrated legal cases for the precedent value, and more often negatively for infamous ones, whether this for scale, outrage, scandal, or conspiracy theories. The term is a French phrase in common use in English, but it's actually included in English dictionaries at this point. So, I mean, we can look at here for some notable examples in the past. O.J. Simpson, Amanda Knox trials in Italy, Julian Assange extradition, George Floyd protests were considered part of them. So cause célèbre actually has some meaning to it, okay? So basically what it boils down to is any high-profile case that involves the media. Well, I mean, what other case now fits that? The presidential election case? Anyway, so how does adding coup to the end change it? Well, what should be self-evident is it means a famous coup for the most part. Well, gee, I wrote this back in June. What's happening right now? Now to some sauce. First off, yes, this is a Russian source. Second, yeah, I know, I don't care. Third, if you read between the lines, you can pick up a lot that you would not get from Western sources. It's written in a fantastical manner, but it doesn't invalidate what it has to say. Um, which one is this one? What does it mean? It's sometimes a little entertaining. I don't remember specifically. Oh, yeah. Okay. Russia designates the George Floyd incident a PSYOP operation. So what this is saying is that the Russians, which take it for what you will, they see the truth of their things their way. They identified the whole George Floyd thing as a PSYOP. Basically, they're looking at it as this is not a real event. This was an event to inflame and to form public opinion, which a lot of us felt and called initially. But here we have the Russians saying the same thing, okay? We could go on in this, but I'm just going to hit the overview of it. So, I mean, we have all these things that don't add up about this whole thing. If you did any studying on the George Floyd thing, you knew that he had this huge eagle tattoo on his chest. Okay, where's the eagle tattoo right here? Would have been visible. Now, anybody remember that dummy that the resuscitation dummy plant that burned down the night that they arrested George Floyd, that was like 2 blocks away from here? And oddly enough, one of the resuscitation dummies was a dead ringer for George Floyd. Do you notice how you don't ever see any of this without just his upper torso? You don't see his stomach. You don't see his legs or anything. Want to bet that that's not even a real person that's being kneeled on there? I mean, the way this is flopped up on there, it could easily be a dummy. I mean, it's just, there was just so many things about it. I mean, in this guy, they've shown him to be a crisis actor. I mean, this is who it supposedly is versus his picture here. This guy looks like he's got a narrower, longer face than this guy. So, well, part of the reason other countries figured out Chrissy is because they're actually getting a little bit more objective media than we have. Our media is so far out to lunch that they wouldn't know truth if it slapped them in the face or if they had to rely on it. Zed Almighty, love the name. What was it? What's the first Wizards rule? Anyway, Hunter Biden on stage last night. As far as Hunter dying, I'm not sure. Or Hunter dying. Sorry, I'm reading on the screen and talking at the same time. The Hunter being on stage last night is interesting. It just goes to show that, number one, I think he's back within Dad's control. But I really think that there's a lot more going on there than we know. I think if you look at everything from a 40,000 foot view and you look at it as a controlled op and kabuki theater and people just playing their roles, it all makes sense. If you try to look at it closer and try to discern meaning out of each event or behavior or pattern or structure, then it just doesn't make sense, because why would somebody do that? Why would Biden have his son there when all this? Well, don't look at it that way. Look at it from the 40,000 foot view going, okay, this is all controlled. They're being told what to do. Well, now it makes sense because it creates outrage. That's what we want. We want people to be outraged because this is what opens normies' eyes. So if you step back and look at it from that point of view, it makes sense. If you try to examine it from any other way, it's just illogical. It doesn't fit. So, meaning, what's the right thing to do? You got to look at it from the 40,000 foot view. You can't look at it up close. You look at it up close, you're going to get wrapped up and you're going to get confused, and it's not going to make sense. So 11/11 is a date I think I agree with you, Damon. I really think 11/11 is going to be a big day. I still think that POTUS's tweet about polls that he deleted and changed it from POLES to POLLS. What's 1 and 1 look like? Well, it looks like 2 poles, 2 sticks, 2 poles. On my case, sausage fingers. But 1 pole, 2 pole. So we'll see. I think that it's going to end up playing out where 11/11 is important. I'm not going to come out and say for sure, but I think it's the case. Yeah, I mean, Denise, I'll come right out and say it. Hollywood's been really, really quiet overall. We have 5 to 10 people, maybe 15, that are constantly popping their heads up and, think of Donkey in the first Shrek movie, bounce around, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. They're doing this to get your attention and to force you to look at them, to make you think that Hollywood is still active. But what's really happening is they're forcing you to focus on them because they're the only ones that are they're the ones that are speaking. Everybody else is really, 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 really quiet. Why? What are they doing? What are they busy doing? I think they're busy being actors, but on a much bigger stage than they've ever been on. The actor playing the cop is the actor from Cash Cab. There you go. Let's see. Hunter's under arrest. Hell, most of them have been under arrest. That doesn't mean they can't be out there playing their role. The thing that people forget is that we have ways, implants and things like that they do what they say or they drop dead. So anyway, back to my thread here. So let's take a meat at the bone of the situation. And let me give pause here to give a shout out. Regrettably, this gentleman's also been suspended. He's no longer has this account for bringing this to my attention. I told him he needed to thread it, but he deferred. I felt this was just too important to not get out there. So here we are. This is a cut and paste from the above article. Known in the intelligence world as a cause célèbre coup, this report details the CIA has spent decades perfecting this method of overthrowing governments. Now, this also, I believe, is known as a color revolution. So I think we can look at this with the same eye as color revolution. It's one of the CIA's preferred ways of doing things. And effectively, that's what they're attempting to do. Now, the thing that people also have to realize is that the CIA is the core of the deep state. They are the shadow government, as it were. So the first step of which is to find a societal fracture point using race, political differences, or other such divisions, and applying pressure to it. That's then followed by the igniting of protests, where ordinary protesters provide cover for agent provocateurs. Now, the societal fracture point here in the United States is race, blacks versus whites. Political differences, most blacks at that point were seen as Democrat. Most whites were seen as Republican, even though it's far from the fact. And they apply pressure to it, followed by the igniting of protests, Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Now, the BLM folk, I think, were, for the most part, probably innocent in some cases. I think they were co-opted and subverted by Antifa. Antifa is not innocent in any way, shape, or form. They are directly related to ISIS and Soros, and by extension of ISIS, they're related to Obama and Clinton and No Name. So they're a creation of the Democrats, effectively. Antifa is the domestic military arm of the Democratic Party. And we need to realize that that's what they are. And MS-13, and I said this before, and I'm going to say this again, MS-13 was really meant to be their military arm, because MS-13 was the CIA's shock troops from the cartels. And that's really what the wall was about. The wall was really about keeping MS-13 out of the country as much as possible, and so that we wouldn't have to deal with MS-13, Antifa, and Antifa being bolstered by all these prisoners that got let out of prison, which is another ISIS trick, and then the potential for the Chinese coming in from the north, aka the UN or whatever you want to call it. If you look at that, that's a pretty deep attack plan that's got a lot of people and a lot of bodies involved. If you remove one of them, the MS-13, well, MS-13 are absolutely brutal. They would be, I don't want to say they'd be hard for a military to deal with, but one-on-one, mano, that might not be a good situation. And I think that it would be a good idea. They took and removed MS-13 out of the equation because they were going to be the absolute most brutal and most violent of the groups. And we didn't need to have that happening on the streets of America, and they recognize that. So that's why that was isolated early. So we're left to deal with Antifa and the prisoners that got let out and have since joined. I mean, what was it? All four of the people that were arrested for the shooting of the one guy and back east, I can't remember what town that was, one where they shot him in the chest at point blank range. And all the people that were involved were all past child predators and molesters and people that had been basically let out of prison early. So, I mean, there's a reason that Antifa is full of the freaks, because they are all the freaks of society. Anyway, otherwise known as terrorists and or saboteurs who perform acts of violence and vandalism. You'll notice this within the BLM riots. Not only are they're hit people, MS-13, they're hit people. MS-13 was going to be their shock troops. That was going to be their head folk, the guys who wouldn't be afraid to go up and just slit a police officer's throat. You don't have that kind of animal within what's left of Antifa and the prisoners. They're just not many anyway. Anyway, so we've seen this tweet, what I'm explaining here, happen within the BLM riots. You'll have a bunch of people roaming around, then one guy will go and he'll just start breaking every window he can get his hand on. And then we have pallets of bricks and rocks and construction throwing stuff that just magically appear at these at these pre-planned riot spots in the days before the riot. This is all laid out. This is all planned. This is all designed. The intent of which is to force the government to deploy its police and our military forces to restore normal order. And if done, it sees them walking into a trap. So basically what this has all been about is this has been about trying to get Trump to commit the National Guard to putting down these different actors. And Trump keeps saying, well, hey, just let me know. I'll do it. And he's been forcing, interestingly enough, he's been forcing the Democrats to say no to it by offering it so much. If he hadn't offered it to them, they probably would have asked for it and they would have put him in the trap. But because he asks them for it, they have to do the opposite, because they can't be seen to be going along with anything Trump wants or does. So they have to do the exact opposite. I mean, it's brilliance. It's just he knows exactly what he has to do at every time to force them to do exactly what he wants, which is exactly the opposite of what they want. Think about that for a minute. That's a mindful. As soon as the National Guard gets involved, what's going to happen is that there's going to end up being a national mass death event, meaning there's going to be a situation in which it's going to be a false flag. Okay. It'll be quickly blamed on the government. I think they tried that with that bodyguard that shot that poor guy in the face. I think they were attempting to do that. I don't know if the gal that was hanging around that guy so much was a black hat or a white hat. I got a sneaking suspicion she was a white hat because she was there to capture the moment as it specifically happened, which shows nothing more than the guy getting slapped and stepping back 2 steps, drawing and killing a guy. It shows exactly what happened as it happened. There's no arguments about what happened there. And I think it completely and totally diffused what could have been a very bad situation, because that could have easily been seen, because the guy that got shot in the face was armed. He had a pistol on him. So that could have easily been twisted quickly into something that it wasn't. And, it changed a lot there. So anyway, the purpose to being to ignite enough outrage to overthrow the government before any investigation can be made. With one such CIA provocateur being captured on video yesterday, paying black protesters in Washington, D.C. And we've seen this before too. Again, this was written back in June, but it applies to today too, or 2 months ago, or a month from now. We haven't seen the real riot start yet. Although I am impressed in that they got all these guys geared up to riot on election day. No riot. Why would they riot? Nobody was declared winner. 5D chess. I mean, it's incredible. Anyway, so there's a lot going on here. The CIA is a big problem. They're playing their games behind the scenes. They're inflaming stuff. And yes, Denise, late 1600, Kent State, and yeah, it's exactly the same tactics as Damon just said. It's right on the money. There's no doubt about it. So anyway, we've exhausted that one. Okay, constitutionality. This one, again, I wrote this one back in a year ago, November 21st. But this one I wrote this at the impeachment time, but if we substitute impeachment for election or whatever else, this still is a very valid thread, because the mechanics of what goes on behind the scenes is going to be very much the same, and for the same reasoning. In a discussion a troll got me involved in, constitutionality came to the fore, and it made me realize a few things about the plan that are perhaps unstated but obvious in application. It appears that we are rushing towards a multiple constitutional crisis. Impeachment at that time, and then voter fraud is one that I actually called back then. Voting style will have to be an amendment to prevent future abuses, and I think that's still going to be the case. I think we're going to have to mandate in-person only balloting, perhaps no electronic balloting, because the electronic machines have shown to be so easily manipulated. Blockchain is a very, very potential solution, but I have a feeling that POTUS is going to be reluctant to utilize tech to solve problems, because tech in and of itself is another problem. So we need to be careful about, pushing blockchain and things like that. So we'll see. And I'm sure iPod did do a document. He covers a lot of stuff. I don't watch a lot of what he does. I know he quotes me every once in a while, but he does good work. I'll give him that. Now, this was again written before RGB went away, so this was assuming that RGB was there. Right now, POTUS enjoys a marginal advantage in the SCOTUS, which is where Constitution is upheld legally. So we know that RBG is not long for this world. Literally true at this point. That basically awards Trump the deciding vote for the SCOTUS to be basically a constitutional bedrock again. Now, basically, what that means is it means that Roberts' waffly vote doesn't matter now. It can be Roberts can vote liberal like he does about half the times it is, and it still won't matter because there's still 5 conservative justices on the Supreme Court. So Roberts can play Roberts. It doesn't matter at all. Okay. Once that happens, basic challenges can be met with confidence in the SCOTUS. So basically what that's saying is that once we get the majority, or the 5 majority that we now have, then, and 6 whenever Roberts decides to vote right, then what we'll have is we have the knowledge that we can go to the Supreme Court, and we know the Supreme Court will rule based on the Constitution as it was written, not the living document crap. Pardon me. Because that's important, because the Constitution was never meant to be interpreted as a living document. Which is funny, because when you hear the people talking about the living document, well, and that's why I'm saying that Roberts is completely and totally a wild card. You know, he potentially is guilty on the Epstein Island thing. There's people that think his adoption was sketchy. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that Roberts could potentially be compromised, but it's obvious that he's compromised because he doesn't vote as a conservative. He votes both sides of the aisle, and a lot of times he votes against the Constitution, which is not what a conservative should be doing. So nobody has proven that that's the Roberts that was on Lolita. John Roberts is not an uncommon name. Now, is it likely that it was him? Yes. But do we have proof? No, we don't. So we need to be careful there. Just like, everybody was raving on about Hunter and proof of pedophilia. Well, we don't know that it was Hunter yet. We know that it's somebody, but we don't know that it was Hunter. Could very well be dad, could very well be uncle. So, or it could be others, because there's others like Pelosi's son that actually they have shown with that Chinese girl that was bound. So that we know because we've seen it. The rest is purely conjecture because we have not seen it. Anyway, back to this. This thread discusses impeachment largely, but I'll skip over it. So basically what's going on is this basic challenges can be met with confidence in the SCOTUS. We have that now. We have that ability to where there's the ability to confront this unconstitutionality square head on with no issues at all. That's a done deal. Now, one of the things that I think is coming up is that we're going to see if Obama's presidency is going to be vacated. I can see reasons for, I can see reasons against. The reasons for being is that it would then invalidate every agreement he made, every decision he made, every appointment he made, every law he signed, and everything. It would all go away. But POTUS has been working very hard to end run all of those anyway. So I don't know that we're going to necessarily see Obama's presidency vacated, as it were. I think that there's probably enough dirt on Sotomayor and Kagan that they can get those two removed pretty quickly if they want. At the right time, once we have, Congress and the House that's on board, I think that'll become an easier prospect. But we got to get through this election mess first, and then we can proceed with all this stuff that's going to happen there. and I basically talk about that here. Solid majority in the House and the Senate will allow him to invalidate Obama's SCOTUS picks, giving him 2 more seats to a point, or it will allow him to bring up corruption charges against these 2 SCOTUS picks, and they can be removed that way. Now, why does this matter? And this is critical. Everybody's got to understand this. Everybody wants to have this happen now. And everybody thinks that we need to have it happen yesterday. And it would be so nice if we could do that. But to do it right and to do it legally, and to do it so that there's not a bunch of unnecessary bloodshed, which are all major issues that have to be taken into consideration, it has to be done in a specific order, a specific time frame. We don't know what those orders and time frames are. We can guess at some of them. Q lets us know some, POTUS lets us know others, but we do not have the full picture in front of us. We don't know what the end goal fully is. We can guess, we know where things are going, but we don't know the whole picture. So there's no way that we can sit back and quarterback armchair this and say we know what's supposed to happen. We don't. So all these people that keep talking about now just need to shut up and let the process play out as it needs to play out, because it will happen as it needs to. Not a second sooner. It's going to happen when it has to, and for the right reasons. And it's a combination of specific order of events that have to happen for legality. It's also a combination of things like optics. Optics has come up a lot with Q, talking about the president. So things have to be done because they have to appear to be done a certain way. Optics can also be meaning to show people what's really going on, meaning they have to expose the corruption before they can do anything about it. We know what's happening. POTUS knows what's happening, but the majority of the public doesn't know what's happening. So that all has to be exposed before you can do anything about it. And then the public uproar has to get to the big enough point, then POTUS can do something about it. You see what I'm saying? It just can't just happen, because it has to appear to follow rule of law, or it has to follow rule of law, which I see more likely as being the case. And it has to be done the right way. And it has to be done with the consent of the people. And that's the thing that Trump is actually doing that most people aren't aware that he's actually doing. He's being very conscientious of doing it with the consent of the people. He's trying to get the people involved to say, this needs to happen. This needs to happen. He wants us to be involved that way. So until the uproar and outcry gets big enough about certain things, it's not necessarily going to happen. So, but it'll also happen in the time it needs to happen. I mean, there's no point in screaming about arresting Hillary right now, because we know that she's going to be one of the last blocks to fall. Her and Obama are probably the last 2. There's a whole slew of people that we've got to get through. Biden is not even high on that list. He's down middle somewhere. So I mean, we've got tons and tons and tons of people that have to be exposed. Hillary exposed. Sorry, that just bad picture in my head. But sorry. But I mean, their deeds have to be shown to the public. They have to be shown what these people are. And I'm not just talking about the satanic and that stuff. That stuff I don't even think will be the thing. I think it's the treason, the actual misdoings that they've sold this country out to China, and once that all comes out, I think that's going to be enough, because that's treason. It doesn't get anything higher than that as far as I'm concerned. As far as the country's concerned, every one of them can dangle till the stop twitching, and that nobody will care at that point. So, and as always, let's go with this. Cue phrases that tell us what's going on. Enjoy the show. This is a movie. Patriots are control. There you go. Precision military planning. And if you don't think that getting Amy Coney Barrett installed in that week's time frame wasn't precision military planning, then I don't know what to show you, because that couldn't have happened any other way. So anyway, and 3 Days, 3 Nights did a thread based off of this, and FISA can bring down Roberts. Roberts is compromised. We know he's done. So anyway, that's that. So back to me. Scary. Let's see here. Let's go look at the comments here. Why 6 Catholics on the SCOTUS? Why does it matter? I don't think it means anything. That's like asking why 6 Jews. It doesn't matter. Their religion has absolutely no play in what they are, and most people's religion does not affect their behavior pattern. Yes, the hierarchy of the church itself might be compromised, but that doesn't mean the people that believe it are compromised. So we need to get away from that thought process. It's actually a very damaging thought process that is not conducive or productive for anybody. As far as seeing President Carter lately, no. And that might be some ammo the deep state has that they haven't expended yet, or it might be something that's done and we don't know about it. And POTUS is waiting for the right moment. Kind of like with RGB. I mean, what are the odds that RGB dies 2 weeks before the election or 3 weeks before the election? And then we get all this election mess that's going to be decided by the one person who just got appointed to the Supreme Court by POTUS. I mean, you couldn't write the story any cleaner or any more specific than that. I mean, it's... Again, if you don't believe that you're not watching a very carefully scripted movie right now, I don't know what else to show you to prove it to you, because this is not natural happenings. This is not the way things play out in real life. This has all been very carefully scripted. Sorry, talking too much. How's the Kazarian thread going? Yeah, Damon's got it right. It's ever expanding. Seems like every time we turn around, we find another huge, or I should say Damon finds another huge thing to add to it. And yes, RGB was on ice. She's been on ice I think she's been on ice for at least 8 or 9 months, maybe longer. I think whoever was playing her was somebody else. Let's see. Bernadine Dorn. What do you mean there, Damon? The first arrest will shock everyone. Yeah, election fraud is the last one. That's very true, Tombstone. Very true. There is no step 5. Yeah, once the election fraud is dealt with, it's done. Man, the first arrest is, I mean, there's so many different ways that can go. I have my thoughts. I don't really have any solid... Oh, okay, I didn't see the Weather Underground thing. I have my thoughts about the first arrest. I'm not sure they're right. I'm more looking at it from how do you, number 1, shock the world, number 2, unify people, number 3, show people that you're not being partisan or biased, and number 4, hold up to all of that. And there's been rumors that have surrounded this person for a long time. I've not seen... no, if DOJ and FBI are compromised, use the U.S. Marshal Service. End of story. We've known that that's going to be the case. Look who's handling all the arrests for the child trafficking and stuff. It's the marshals. It's not the FBI. FBI has been completely and totally phased out of anything important. DOJ has been sidelined as well. Damon, I don't know. I'm not. That's too easy. How could that shock everybody? I mean, we've seen, I mean, there's already enough evidence out there pointing towards the fact that he's treasonous, that, and enough people are believing it, that that's not a shocker. A shocker to me is something that's going to take everybody by surprise. I really think that it's going to be somebody that's close to POTUS. Somebody that we have trusted, or somebody that we've implicitly trusted because POTUS has allowed that person to be there. But also somebody that hasn't made a lot of waves. Somebody that doesn't, go out and speak and well, yeah, but that's all part of the game. I mean, that's all part of the I mean, Joe's arrest is not going to surprise anybody. Yep. People are starting to figure out what I'm thinking. It's either Pence or Jared. And I hate to say either one of those. Now, Ray or Haspel are obvious. Barr, there's no way. Barr's not a black hat. We can just stop with that one right now. Pence would blow everybody's mind. So would Jared. Jared would just absolutely blow everybody. Just completely. I mean, it's his own son-in-law. I mean, number one, what were the criteria I laid out? It's got to surprise everybody. Joe's surprised when he wakes up and finds he's got 2 feet every morning. I mean, come on. He's surprised at what his name is every morning. Jared would be completely, Kushner would just, but did Kushner do that, or was he part of it and somebody else is really pulling the weight? I don't know. I mean, we don't know enough about that whole process or who's involved and who's not involved. We know what's being told to us, but we don't know the reality. I think it's going to be somebody in POTUS' circle, because we know that POTUS is also a big Sun Tzu guy. No, the Jewish part would not matter. POTUS is a big Sun Tzu guy, and Sun Tzu is keep your enemies close, but keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. So that means that whoever is POTUS's biggest enemy is super close to him because he's got him close. Now, Kushner would be a very good possibility, but POTUS can't exert that much control over Kushner because Kushner's a private citizen. He's not a military guy. He's not officially part of anything. He's just his son-in-law. Although I'm sure Ivanka could probably exert some pressure on Jared based on, well, anyway, I won't go there. But I really think that the one that's most obviously could be compromised is Pence. And I think that he's the one that's being controlled. He's kind of a zero. He doesn't really do or add anything. He's just kind of flat. And I don't know. I just think that there's a lot there that we don't know about. Again, I'm not saying that for sure, but I'll tell you, either one of them would shock the world because his vice president or his son-in-law, I mean, either one is just, what the hell? And out of everybody that we know that he's close to, they're the ones that are potentially the dirtiest, or they have the potential for the dirt. Not everybody, I'm not saying that the dirt's there for either one. We don't know. Yeah, I don't disagree, Trey. But the thing is that do we want a zingy VP when we've got Trump? Pence is almost like a perfect foil for Trump. I mean, they're water and oil, and they get along apparently. So, I mean, I don't know. And Pence does have a lot of potential stories about, it seems like everybody in Indiana knows him as a child trafficker. So later, Damon, have a good night. I'll take that 20 from you later. Yeah, I mean, Well, we think that Pence and Paul Ryan did. I mean, that whole website deal. Um, yeah, I mean, it could have just been ambition getting the better of them. They didn't necessarily have to be planning something. It could have just been, well, if we know that Trump is going to have a gazillion people around him trying to kill him, so what if we just set up this contingency plan in case that we could throw into place if it does happen? I mean, there's explanations for all of it. So, but no, not Trey Gowdy. I don't. Oh, that would surprise people, but that one wouldn't shock the world because not enough people know who Trey Gowdy is. We're talking big name, somebody that the world knows. And right now, Trump's vice president or Trump's son-in-law, either one of those would resonate around the world pretty aggressively, and also give sign that Trump is not going to let partisanship, family, or anything get in the way. And hell, what if it's both of them? Oh my God. Can you imagine that? I mean, well, they can't. They literally cannot march into the House and the Senate and arrest him. There's an informal rule about that. But come Christmas time, they're not in session. So the plane story being the one where he was on a plane that was labeled as Air Force Two. Then halfway through the flight, it turned around and went back as a different number, but the flight number turned into something pretty suspicious. Yeah, the bird attack. But the flight number changed when they turned around. And I can't remember what it changed to, but it was something not positive. It was easily read as being something else. And I can't remember for the life of me what it was. Yeah, Trey is definitely turning into a metrosexual. I don't know what the hell is his problem. It was like Sam 2 or something. It was weird. I don't remember why that it turned into Sam. No, somebody had an explanation for it. I don't remember the whole thing because I just don't remember all of it fully because, again, I haven't put a lot of study or thought into it because it's a down the road potential. Sorry about the yawns, guys. Double feature. So, anything you guys want to talk about? Anything you want me to cover? Anything interesting you want to hear about? Try not to make it election related because I'm burned out on that already. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It'll turn out how it has to turn out, when it has to turn out, how it needs to turn out, and that's all. How does Sam refer to the arrested VP though? I don't understand. Pelosi, everybody wants gone. Yeah, nobody likes Pelosi. If it's Pence, you put Flynn as VP. Wow. That's a possibility. That's definitely a possibility. Man, I don't want to go there. The JFK Jr. thing, I want to believe that he's alive and I want to believe it's possible, but it's such a fantastical thought process that I kind of don't want to push it or get behind it because it's one of those that actually makes us look like we're freaking insane for believing it. I don't really think that man, I think if you follow the full story through, there's a possibility that he could have escaped and lived. Well, yeah, it's been said no, but we also know that Q has said disinformation is necessary, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, up is down, left is right, black is white. We don't know. I mean, everything Q has said, we could believe the exact opposite and have just as much reason for believing it as reading it straight. That's one of the beauties of the Q operation, but also one of the things that sucks because you can pretty much prove a lot of stuff that doesn't necessarily really mean something. Antarctica. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll go there. So Sidney Powell for FBI head. I would like to see that, although her voice kind of bothers me a little bit. And I'm not saying that because it's her voice bothers me. I'm saying because of the quaveriness in her voice. That kind of tells me that she potentially has some issues, possibly Parkinson's coming up, something like this. Because a lot of times the voice is one of the places that'll first show up. I don't know that she is actually going to be in a position to be able to deal with stuff for much longer. So we'll see. Honestly, I think Trey would be perfect as the FBI head. That'd be the spot he should go because he's a no nonsense, no bullshit. He's not going to take shit from anybody. I mean, even though he's gone metrosexual, as somebody said. Anyway. Special air mission. Is that true, Kitty? Or is that just somebody assuming that's what SAM means? I don't know enough about the Air Force to know, what throw things. Confused the House, Congress, and Senate. Okay. House and Senate together equal Congress. Congress is both together. The House is multiple people based on population. So each state has, based on its number of people, has a person in the House. And that's why the House has so many seats. Whereas the Senate is 2 people per state, no matter what size state. And that's why the Senate's done that way. The House is budgets and stuff like that. The Senate does other things. They each have their role. They each play their role. They each do things. They're 2 different pieces of government. And then together they work with the executive branch, i.e. the president, and they all work together and get it done. And the judiciary branch, which would be the Supreme Court and the federal courts, are also involved as well. So, yeah, believe me, your parliament confuses the fuck out of us. So I get it. So is the queen important or no? No, she's not, but everybody pretends she is. So now you get it. What do you think about Trey, Pamela? I mean, does he do good for you guys there locally, or or is he just hot air? And that's good to know, Kitty. Thank you. I appreciate that sauce. I'll go along with that. I mean, if it's somebody that's got some active duty time. Oh yeah, major news anchors, major newspapers, major reporters, they're all going down. Now, are we going to know that's what happened? Not necessarily. If they flipped and are playing their part in the movie, again, which I think a lot of them are, I think that they've gotten deals and they'll be able to take their judgment quietly. Okay, so you're getting the same feeling about Trey that I've kind of gotten the last couple times I've seen him. He's not gay, is he? I mean, is he married? I mean, not that matters any, but it just, he was such a bulldog and so and then all of a sudden he's kind of gone into this, bleach blonde hair and little spiky hair things. Although I can't really talk myself. Mine's just because my hair does funky stuff on its own, and it's weekend, and I don't care. So he is married. Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't have any answers. Maybe his wife likes the more feminine side he's showing. He could be trying cases. He did say that he was going back into private practice, but they haven't really said what he's doing. So is he in private practice? Was Trey ever military? If he was military, he could have been recalled to work on the tribunals. So there is that. I got to admit, I really like Trey. I always did. Or maybe Trey was trapped. Maybe he was one of those like Lindsay that were, stuck in the middle. Who do I think is at the top of the pyramid? We'll just call it an exceptionally evil entity. Some people call him the devil. Some people call him Satan. Some people call him Moloch. Some people call him Baal. Beelzebub. He goes by a bunch of names. That's who's at the top. Period. There's no doubt in my mind that's who's at the top. So, if you look at the length of time and duration that this whole thing has gone on, you can't, there's no human nature or human that could maintain that kind of focus and direction for that kind of time frame. And so the singularity of thought and the singularity of purposes carried through millennia tells me that it's a supernatural force, or a higher entity, call it whatever you want. Fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional being, which is very likely what it is. So I really think that that's exactly what we have, and that's exactly what's going on. And that's what we're fighting, and that's who's in charge. And these people, if you watched my thread on Luciferianism a couple nights ago or a couple weeks ago with Quiet Voice, I discuss all of this and lay it out fairly detailed. But it's it's a mess, and it needs to be resolved and dealt with. I don't know that we're ever going to be able to deal with it completely or fully. Might be beyond our power to do so. But, God, or what we call God, is a very powerful force, and it is something that we can call and utilize when we get together and do the right things, as far as our being on the same page. And, that's what prayer is about. That's why prayer is so powerful, because unified as people, we are exceptionally powerful, because we can directly affect our universe. And this has been shown by quantum physics. Your thought affects matter, and we need to pay attention, move forward with good intentions in our heart. Look out for each other, and go from there. I think that there is an evil entity chained in a pit in the Antarctica. Not Antarctic, but Antarctica. The Arctic is the other side of the world. But yes, I do believe that there are entities. Actually, I believe that there are potentially entities in each of the sustained lava lakes. I won't go into exactly why I believe that, but someone reached out to me with some information, and we did some work and found some very interesting things. So the humans are at the top. There's a layer above the Rothschilds. I do not believe it's royalty. Royalty is just the king and queen from Brussels are just, they're another German monarchy. They're part of the same group of royals that are across the whole, across all of Europe and um, in Asia and Middle East and stuff. I think as far as who's above the Rothschilds, I think it very well could be the black nobility. I think the Rothschilds are their puppets, as it were. The bottom line is what we're dealing with now it's not the pesos. Just drop the pesos. That's a false flag, misinfo. Didn't happen. They may have been important for a while, but they weren't for very long. That was completely a false flag deal. It all started with Nimrod, and Nimrod basically is the first one who put together an army. He's the first one who started worshiping Satan directly, and then it transformed. He was the king of Babylon, and then that's where the Babylonians got their structure. And don't forget the fall of the Tower of Babel. It was a very evil time for him, a very bad group of people. And there's a reason why we call it the Babylonian Talmud. Okay. And I'm kind of getting way ahead here. I'm kind of giving up, giving some insights on this thread that Damon and I and Brother Street Joy and a couple other people are working on. But the bottom line is that we can trace this group through history from the beginning, Nimrod. I mean, it doesn't get much earlier than that. We can trace them. We can trace their country. We can show the path all the way through. And they end up as the black nobility in Venice in the 1400s. And from that point forward, the Roman Catholic Church, and at that time it was the Holy Roman Empire, because the Pope and the Emperor were combined. It was not they were not separate people. They were the same person. And we have to remember at that time that they were also German. They were not Roman. There was a German, Austrian, actually, empire. And that all becomes important because Switzerland plays into this, Brussels plays into this. All these Germanic influenced things have played into this. And it's the Khazars and were forced by Russia back in 1200 to pick one of the three religions. They picked Judaism. They formed Talmudic Judaism, which has got the Kabbalah built into it, which the Kabbalah is the dead giveaway because that's, it's Babylonian magic is effectively what it is. Yeah, and the Babylonian debt system. It's what we're playing with. It's what we're under. This all goes back to Babylon. Everything, all the bad goes back to Babylon. I mean, this is millennia that we're dealing with here. This is not just the past couple hundred years. The Rothschilds are a convenient bad guy. They're the Y-head, but it goes back even further than that because the Y-head, if you follow the Y-head, it goes all the way back to the worship of Moloch. Remember, the Y-head is horns. What's cow have? A bull has horns. That goes all the way back to Moloch. That goes way, 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 way back. And you can trace that half moon look and that half moon thing, which is the bowls of a horn, all the way forward and follow it through all these people. So there's just tons of information out there. I'm not going to give the whole thing away, but it's very, very, very important that we know that this is happening. There are real good Jews, and we have to be aware of this. And we have to not just paint Jews as bad guys because they are not. They are God's chosen. But it's not the majority that everyone wants you to think. We're not talking about like the Jews in Hollywood or the Jews in banking or the Jews in all these controls. We're talking about the true Jews, which we don't really see many of. Most of the Jews that we see are Khazarian in nature and in background, and most of those people are actually probably good people too. They're just mistake of birth, but there's this overlying element that is very specifically, they're Babylonian, Talmudic, satanic practitioners, and the rites, the the sucking of the blood of the penis when they do the circumcision. And again, not all Jews do that, just certain ones. And if you follow that and you watch it, you can see and you find out, if you do the figuring of which way they go, Talmud or Torah, then you know that if they're Talmudic, that they're on that side. And that's what you got to be careful of. But we have to be careful. So, because it's so easy to say, well, the Jews are bad. Well, no, it's not that. Certain sections of the population are bad. That'd be like saying, okay, because Hillary Clinton, George Bush, and I don't know who else, George Bush Sr. are all white, then all whites are bad. I mean, that's the kind of thought process, and we just can't do that. We have to take it individually, but we do have to also broad stroke it to some degree, because there are threads of this that do come forward through history, but we have to give it the right context, so we're not just saying, no, it's all these people. No, I mean, it explains why you can have a supposed Rothschild in Hitler, who is a Jew, exterminating Jews, because Hitler was not a real Jew. Hitler was an Ashkenazi Zionist Jew. He was from that bloodline. Whereas the people that were being exterminated were the true Jews, the true bloodlines, the true people of God. So we have to be so careful about this, because it's such a touchy subject, and everybody, well, you're anti-Semite and blah, blah, blah. It's just a touchy subject. So I want to be really careful. And everybody that follows me or whatever, I'm trying to educate and help, so that we're all on that same page. We're all understanding that we have to be cautious. We have to be aware of what we're saying and how we're saying it, and the importance of the way we phrase things, and how we cast words, phrases out there, because that's going to become very important as time goes on. And there's a reason why we were saving Israel for last. And that's exactly why, because it's going to be the toughest of them all. Genesis 6 Conspiracy by Gary Wayne. I'm afraid I have no idea what that is. And history does really repeat, and that's why dates are so important. Yes, those who do not study history are doomed to repeat it. Sunspots and effect on terrain. That's interesting. I haven't heard that one. What do you mean, HDL? Later, Trey. Have a good night. Thank you. And yes, Denise, really, I'm sorry. I kind of came across harsh there. I didn't mean to. I've debunked that so many times that I get frustrated when people keep bringing it up. I really think that the Paysor thing was dropped as a CIA misdirection. So, well, Matt, they can't arrest the JFK assassin because he's already been assassinated, or he's already been executed. So, and that was George Herbert Walker Bush, the elder. Yeah, there's a lot of truth in the ancient Hebrew words and language. There's a lot of strangeness there. And when you start applying what you learn there and try to imagine how a Victorian or slightly, yeah, Now, one of the things that we get into, and we got into in the Luciferian thread, and we're going to see in the Khazaria thread, is the how all religions are just a form of mind control. Spirituality itself is not bad. The search for God is not bad. The search for a relationship with God is not bad. But the actual institutions, the churches themselves, and the hierarchy in those churches are what's bad. And we've seen it with the Roman Catholics. We've seen it with the Muslims. We've seen it with, we're going to see it with the Mormons, because they're going to turn out that the Mormons are up to their necks in child trafficking. That's something that a lot of people don't know about. Southern Baptists are known for having issues. I mean, it doesn't matter. All of them. What is going on at the moon? Fill me in. What do you think's going on at the moon? Bounce it off me. I'd like to see some evidence of those crystals, HDL. Be interesting. I believe Yorkie Nanny, I think you're right on the money with the Hasidic Jews. I believe that they are the originals, or the remnants of it, because I believe they are Torah-based completely. They don't believe the Talmud at all. So, and the Pope, well, let's not even talk about the Pope. Yeah, we did land on the moon, Matt. Even Q said that. All the anti-moon landers, they're just as bad as the flat Earth folk, as far as I'm concerned. They step around evidence that's right in front of them so that they can ignore, what really happened. Oh, 2 different boots. Well, yeah, because they had an outer suit that went on when they went outside, and that's why there's 2 different boot prints. Yes, we really did go there when they said you can actually see the landing sites with a telescope. I have done so with my own eyes. So that's why I really don't put up with people that say that, no, we didn't, because bullshit, I've seen it. It's not that hard to see. You just have to get a good enough scope and spend some time looking for it, and you'll find it. The hardest part is you got to get a telescope that tracks the movement through the night sky. If you get a regular telescope, you can actually see the moon moving your telescope from its motion through the sky and as the Earth's rotation. And not everybody has that. And you got to have a pretty good scope. I mean, not just a small one. Now, as far as what our real capabilities are, I wish Damon was still here. I've got plenty of evidence that we have had much greater capability to go into space than we have known for much longer than we have known. We were probably on the moon before Neil Armstrong landed, but most likely on the backside, the dark side, as it were. And the fact that they're finding water on the moon, which I find it interesting, because the one thing that most people don't realize is that it takes a chemical reaction for rust to form. Rust is really metal burning, which most people don't realize. Oxidation is another form of burning, chemically speaking. And it takes another element to cause rust to form. It's not just water. It's not just water and iron. There's another element that has to be present in order for it to happen. And that is oxygen. So if we're seeing rust, that means that there's water, iron, and rust. Because oxygen is the fuel source. The common misconception, and we've got it named all wrong. And that's why there's so much that is misconceived about fire, and burning. You don't burn wood when you put wood in the stove. You're burning oxygen. Okay. Wood is the catalyst. You don't burn gasoline when you start your car engine. Gasoline is the catalyst. You're burning the oxygen. Okay. So what we're doing is we're using a catalyst that causes oxygen to burn, and that's what provides power or heat or whatever. Oxygen is what's really burning. So iron oxide or ferric oxide is a chemical burning that occurs at low temperature, i.e. it's not hot, but it also requires oxygen, hence the term oxide. That indicates that oxygen has to be involved. Oxygen is what burns, and therefore that's what discolors, and it's but like I say, it's a much lower order of happening. It's not a hot event, it's a cold long-term event. So if there's oxygen, if there's rust oxide or ferric oxide happening on the moon, that means we have water, we have rust, or we have iron. And what else has got to be present? Oxygen. Well, how the hell do you have oxygen on the moon? So, because oxygen is not a solid, it's a gas. And, there's rocks that can have high content of oxygen in them. And it's basically, we're getting into planetary construction and stuff like that. But oxygen can be released from the ground. But it's fairly unusual, supposedly, or it's thought to be. So, but maybe it's not. Maybe that's why Mars is red. Maybe that's why. I mean, Mars does have an atmosphere that we know of. It's very, very thin. But it's thought that it had a much bigger, much thicker atmosphere in its past. There's supposition about the fourth planet out, and what's now the asteroid belt, being what caused Mars to lose its atmosphere. There's also supposition that the big crater on the backside on the underside of the moon is from a nuclear detonation, and that the moon had an atmosphere at one point. I mean, there's been all sorts of theories and thoughts and stuff like that too. Like I say, I got bookshelves full of that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, and you have to have oxygen, but once oxygen marries the hydrogen, it's no longer oxygen. So it's chemically, it changes to the point where it's not going to behave in the same way. So, because you'd have to, in order to get that oxygen to work, you'd have to break the hydrogen off of it somehow, and that reaction would cause something that's heat or whatever, and it doesn't happen naturally. So, but yes, the moon. We have capabilities of going apparently all over the galaxy, which blows me away, because as I wanted nothing more than to go to space ever since I was tiny. It's just, the whole thought process and the whole idea is just wonderfully mind-blowing to me. I want to see the truth of that more than almost anything. The secret space program. I've been following the secret space program off and on for probably 15 years now, as I can find information I can't debunk. I tend to do that pretty regularly because I'm a little bit more literal and scientific minded than most people probably think I am. And so I have to see the reality of something before I'll admit that it could possibly happen. And so, just the fact that the secret space program is, what I've seen of it is just astounding. And I've also heard that it's something else. A couple people I trust, a couple personal friends who have seen things that have talked to me that once you start adding 2 and 2 and 4 and 10 together, it starts adding up pretty big, and you start looking at it and you go, whoa, okay, now that makes some sense. And let's just say that places like Diego Garcia are not all that they seem. There are no, I don't believe there's any backward engineered current craft, meaning that there's no currently, I'm phrasing this badly, so bear with me. I don't think that any alien craft have crashed on our planet recently, like in the past millennia or two. I believe everything that we found, if we found it, is ancient, and it very well is potentially prior Earth technology. I do believe that there's potentially other types of life here on the planet, but I don't think it's necessarily from another planet. It's more extra dimensional. It's so much work to go between planets, and between the amount of energy and the task to move people and things and stuff between planets, between solar systems, is incredible. And I think that's the thing that most people forget. And the space, the distances are just huge. I mean, when you look up at the night sky and you see stars up there, the thing that you have to realize is that the closest star, other than the sun, well, okay, here's a good thing. Maybe this will put it in perspective for you. Everybody thinks our sun is close. Okay. Do you realize how long it takes the light from the sun to get to the planet, to Earth? Just the light. It's over 8 minutes. Okay. It doesn't happen instantaneously. So when you look at the sun, you're seeing it 8 minutes old. You're not seeing what's happening now. You're seeing what happened 8 minutes ago. 8 minutes and 30 some seconds or whatever it is. So when you look up at the night sky, and if you happen to be able to see, Alpha Centauri or whatever, which is the next closest sun, and it's 4.3 light years away, it has taken 4.3 years for that light to get here. So what you're seeing is not what happened now; it's what happened 4.3 years ago. Well, as you look more and more, you're seeing stars that are millions of light years away, hundreds of millions of light years away. I mean, the dinosaurs were still around when the light from those stars left those stars and is now here. I mean, that's how long that light has been in transit, and what you're seeing now. You're effectively seeing the dinosaurs in the sky. So most people, it just, the vastness of it, just a lot of people can't put that together and understand that, and they just think, oh, well, the lights are up there. They'll, yeah, but it's more than that. I mean, not all of them are that far away. I mean, there's a lot of them that are 100 light years, or 50 light years, or 300 light years, or whatever. But I mean, it's still not an inconsiderable amount of time. I mean, at the speed of light, and the only way around that is by other forms of potential jumping, which we're not sure happens. I could say that we do have the capability, but I'm going to reserve opinion on that until we get more information, which I think we will see within the next 10 years. I think that most of this will become well known and out there as part of the disclosure programs that are coming. So I believe that what we see mostly on this planet are dimensional beings, fifth and sixth dimensional beings, mostly fifth. Sixth are pretty rare. They have to come down in density quite a ways to get here. We're fourth dimensional, which most people don't realize. We're not three-dimensional. We're actually fourth dimensional. We've got X, Y, Z, and time, which is our 4 dimensions. So anyway, talk about rambling. There you go. Anybody else got anything? Remote viewing is exceptionally probable and more than probable. It's doable. It's possible. I actually have been in contact with a remote viewer. I talk to her every once in a while. I discuss a lot of stuff with them. I've also done a lot of research on remote viewing. It's the real deal. And my understanding is most anybody can do it. It's not something that is special to any one individual. There's people that are better at it than others, but everybody has the potential to do it. You got to remember that science has shown and studies have shown that out of the complete vastness of our brain, we use 10% of it, 15% for someone like Einstein or Hawking or POTUS or whoever. Any of the really high IQ folk. I mean, I've got a reasonable IQ, but I'm not up there. So, you look at that and you think, well, what are we doing with the other 90%? Well, it's learning how to access that, learning how to get to it and to reuse it. It's things that we've known how to do in our past, but we've forgotten for whatever reason. So we need to reteach it and relearn it. It's like learning how to walk or swim or breathe or see. Some things are instinctive, other things not so much. We have to work at it. Walking being one of them. You'd think that we'd be able to just hop up and walk because it's what we're made to do. Well, not necessarily, because everything's got to grow to your muscles have got to grow, your balance has to grow, your capabilities have to grow. It's the same thing with any of these other things. You just have to learn how to use it. It's there. You may not know it until you learn that you can do it. And then once that boundary of not believing that it can't be done is gone, then you can do it. So nice response, Rabbit. Thank you. Anybody else got anything? Silence. Well, let's see, where are we at here? We're at on my next one. I'll probably do it next weekend. I'm not going to be doing these every day. Not even going to do them every other day. I was just kind of testing some stuff out the past few times. So this is my first official one. Next one, I think we'll do probably same time, same place next weekend. Quiet Voice is going to be down for a little bit, so I'll kind of do these while they're not available. Next, let's see, I gotta see what day that is. Yeah, the Satanists are out in force, it looks like. Friday at 6 p.m. I'm going to be on Patriot Transition Voice discussing Antarctica. Who wasn't the one to hear Antarctica? That's where you go. I'll be there on the 13th talking about it. It's kind of why I didn't want to get into it tonight. I don't want to blow that up. That's this week. So, yeah, we'll touch that there. So I'll be online the 13th doing this for somebody else. Not my own. I will link it here when it's done, though. And that should be interesting. They want to talk about my Matt. It started months ago. It started years ago. It's what you're seeing now is kabuki theater. So ley lines are a real thing, David. They are a power source. Here, let me guys show you something here. Let me go back over here. Bring up El Globo. Take that off. Close that up. Okay. This is my map of the ley lines on the planet. As you can see, there's many different colors. Each one has kind of its own meaning. You know, you've got different forces, you've got different energies, and they tend to have their own patterning. I mean, I could break this down even further here. You've got these grid points and grid lines and the geometric figures and the circle projections and stuff. But there's also specific meanings, you know, like air and water and fire and earth and, you know, all the elemental things. This particular line here is very interesting. This one that runs down the Nile right here. Let me straighten that up for you. Okay. So we're on a north-south. And you notice this, they label this as the first point, UVG1. Let me grab my pyramid markers. Where was it? There it is. We just click on pyramids so you can see where the pyramids. I've got all the pyramids in Egypt marked on my Google Earth. I've got quite a few other ones marked too, but the ones in Egypt I specifically did. Okay. Now you see this white line here? Now maybe not this other one up here and this one out here. But if you look, and yes, there are this many pyramids in Egypt. If you look here, again, this white line, you can see how many are almost right on it. They're very, very, very close. You can see an actual pyramid there, another one there. Here, you've got the three main pyramids, Giza, the three main Giza pyramids. There's smaller ones next to them that most people don't realize. You've got these three here. This is where they found the boat. The Sphinx is right there. Okay. But if you look, there's a ley line that runs right there. And then a crossing right here. But I mean, these pyramids, especially a couple of them, were almost right on the ley line. This one right here is right on it. I mean, we're talking feet. Let me get the ruler out here. What, it's 75 feet away? That line disappears, but I mean, you can get the idea there. Oops. So, anyway, I mean, they consciously built based on directions and things like that, and that's the thing that people have to understand and realize is that there was a lot more sophistication in how this stuff was built than most people even have a clue about. You know, I mean, and look at the orientation. It's almost perfectly north, south, east, west. You know, there's knowledge involved in that. So, but the ley lines are, if we go to, let's look at Chartres Castle. Oops. Okay, there's a nice big cathedral. And if you look, it's remarkably close to a node of ley lines. And almost all the main cathedrals are known to be close or on top of ley lines. And I picked Chartres because it has some very interesting potential, 30 miles off. Has some very potential possibilities. Some people think that's where the Ark of the Covenant was stored, and actually disappeared. There is a very interesting pattern in the floor of Chartres Cathedral. Um, that's the word I'm looking for. This maze is in the floor of Chartres Cathedral, and there's people that feel that this has, I don't want to use the word supernatural power, but it has some possibilities. Some think it's a dimensional portal, things like that, combined with this proximity to a ley line. But this is unique in Christendom. There's not another cathedral that happens to have a pattern like this. And you start throwing in with its proximity to southern France, which Marseille is, this area down in here is where supposedly Mary Magdalene landed. And if you follow the Black Madonna, she came up through and supposedly made her way to England. So I don't know. That's a whole nother. I got a couple books that cover all that. And at some point, we can get into that and see if there's any truth or anything to it. I haven't dug into that a whole lot. It's interesting, but it's not. No, that cathedral cross is not north, south, east, west. If anything, it's because we're in a perfect north-south orientation now. So it's actually exactly, I would say, 45 degrees. Because the north, south, east, west. So the sub-cross, I would think, is off. So yeah, Bermuda Triangle. I actually have done a full. If you go into one of my playlists and you look for the one that I did with Quiet Voice on Atlantis, I cover that in depth, Pamela. And let's see what else did I see. Are you down that far, Rabbit? Now you've got yourself a nice little convergence right here. The Stonehenge, I believe. So there's Bath. Cheddar. I always love the names. Here, let's just look at Stonehenge. I don't think. Stonehenge. It's not far off that line. So, and yes, the getaway car is a good getaway car. It gets the job done. Oh, you're all the way down there. Nice. I didn't make it that far down when I was there. In fact, Salisbury and Stonehenge and Bath was about as far down as I got. I didn't go any further. But I mean, I wouldn't like to come back over and revisit. All right, anything else, guys? I could spoil you all and show you where Atlantis is. I know they're not showing its alternate name today. St. Ives. Oh, you are way down in the corner then. Wow. Yeah, you weren't kidding when you said that you were down in the corner. Hell, I didn't even know about these. Isles of Scilly. I thought it was Sicily initially. I was thinking, what? Wrong boot. Anyway, Tintagill. Where's Tintagill? You're also in the UK. Oops, not UK. You're not that far away from Rabbit. And yeah, there's one right by you. It runs right up here. So there you go, Stephanie. Yeah, England's got a bunch of interesting stuff. That's a big ass airport out in the middle of nowhere. Oh, that must be one of the old World War II runways that they don't use anymore. Huh, interesting. Funny how they keep all of it mowed right though. Yeah, there's all sorts of interesting stuff in England if you go looking around. I could spend quite a bit of time mapping, just digging around on it and find stuff. So, anyway. All right. Boy, that's a big node up there in northern Scotland. Kind of interesting to zoom in and see where they all are. It's really interesting when you find things that are right on the points, too. Atlantis. Well, again, you should go watch that video I did with Quiet Voice about Atlantis. But bottom line is, I believe this is Atlantis right here. This matches Plato's description of it being directly west of the Straits of Gibraltar. It's seven-sided. It looks like it could have been land at one point, but has been washed clean. I wish I could get a depth of that. Basically, I theorize there's this impact. Let me turn this off for a minute. I actually have all of it right here. I can kind of retouch on. I just have to find it. So many things. Wait a minute, where did it go? Oh, it's right there. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay. I'll turn that off. There's this thing called... Oops, I turned pyramids off too. I don't need all those marked right now. There's this thing called the Younger Dryas impacts. And it's a meteor that, or a comet that basically fragmented, and it impacted the Earth. And as the Earth rotated, it hit, at different points along here, and you can see the field as it spread out. And one of the first impact points is at Aleppo, which, if any of you followed my St. James thread, you'll understand why that's important. But it goes around here, and you can see all these impact spots that are potential here. And there's other spots that they haven't found too. I potentially found a couple that fall within the field. But this is what I believe is what took out Atlantis, was this Younger Dryas impact. Well, that got messed up. I thought I had that better than that. You can see the overlay isn't perfect, but you get the idea. Sometimes it's hard to get them to lay on the map right, but it gets you a pretty good idea. But if we click on where I think Atlantis is, it's right there. It's right on the edge of that area. And it's pretty accurate because if you look at where that's right, I aligned it with the Straits of Gibraltar and stuff. So the field is there, and it could potentially be wider. But if you imagine a major chunk of a comet hitting the water, it will, it's a tsunami. I mean, it's going to wipe stuff out. So I think if you take a look at the fact that it fell in that field, it very likely could have been. The other thing that's interesting is that, how many times do you see a pyramid underwater? Well, you see one there, but you also see another one right here, and it looks like the top of it's been cut off. And actually, that kind of follows in with some other things that I've discovered. So, but anyway, and there's the outline of the 7 sides, if you were curious. So, I know a lot of people think there's that harbor over here, over on this, I can't remember where it was. It's along this coast in here somewhere. That was it, but I don't think that's what it is, because doesn't fit the west of Straits of Gibraltar thing. And we're supposed to believe that Atlantis was also a very advanced civilization, so they would have had outposts on both sides of the water, which to me explains pyramids across the world. We've got evidence of pyramids on almost every continent now. The only one that doesn't have one is Australia. But Antarctica has got, I think, 11 or 12 that I've found so far. Obviously, there's some in the States. There's plenty in the Americas, South Americas, Central Americas. Asia's got a bunch of them. Europe has a bunch. Africa's got Egypt, so we don't need to discuss that more. So it's just very interesting that you start looking at it certain ways. Pardon me. That it becomes really apparent that there's been some very big gaps left in our understanding and history of the planet, and it is a shame, because I think we are all being robbed of a lot of our cultural and knowledge based on that. So, anyway, here's a fun one. Most of you know I'm from Washington State. Medina. Now, I used to work tipping my head so I can see it. That building right there. Okay, so I'm pretty close to where this is, where I was. These 4 guys, and now keep in mind, this area is, we'll give you a real idea of the size of this. This is 3 miles long here. Okay, that's a 3-mile stretch. Okay, and this area here, basically from right here, kind of around down through here, up here, and it kind of cuts into here, is all its own kind of little, I don't know even what to call it, its own really super high dollar, high zoot snooty area. It's technically part of Bellevue, but it's not. They have their own police force. I mean, we're talking an area that's, 10 square miles, maybe, if that. And we got Bill Gates' house. We got Jeff Bezos' house. Jeffrey Brotman and James Sinegal are the brothers that founded Costco. They're billionaires. I used to watch, again, I worked right, where was it? Right there. I used to watch the helicopter bringing Obama in to these dinners at these guys' place. And, it was just kind of sickening to me. I mean, this is I-90. Now, this is the major thoroughfare east-west. No, excuse me, that's 405 or 520. And that's not the major one. The major one's down here on Mercer Island. But I mean, look at this. They've built these. I mean, it's not cheap to put these overpass thingies over these 5 and 10 lane freeways. Yet in this area, they've done a bunch of them so that they could put a roundabout on them, so that people could. Anyway, it's just the amount of money wasted and money spent here. I mean, you don't touch a place along in this area, especially along shoreline, for under, I don't know, probably $5 million. It's just ridiculous. I mean, the money involved is just crazy. So I call that the billionaires, the Washington Billionaires Club. So we've got those, and then up here we have Oprah Winfrey lives up here on Arcus Island. She's I actually have it marked somewhere. Islands, there it is. PNW, Cats Pauline. They've taken it so you can't zoom in on it anymore. But 512 Cats Pauline is Oprah's house, and as you can see there, it's a pretty nice little spread. So, I mean, again, on the water. I mean, you throw that in. I mean, that's what, 5 billionaires right there. And that doesn't even include Paul Allen, a bunch of other things. So, feet washing up on the coastline. A lot of people think that was from the tsunami. It's possible. I don't know how they were making it from there to here without getting eaten by the fish and stuff. But I don't know. Maybe there's not that kind of fish in that part of the ocean. Salish shores. Let's take a look here. Well, there's no such thing as Salish shores. Salish is an Indian reservation. But I don't think it actually really ever turned into anything. That's not on the coastline. Most of the Salish stuff is here in Seattle and stuff. You know, out here is where the stuff would have been washing up, because there's no way it's making it all the way in here and getting through all this and getting into Seattle and stuff. So, Jane, who do I think built the pyramids? I think it was Atlanteans. It might have predated them, but I think it was a megalithic building society. There's some thought processes about how it was done that would not have involved quarrying stone quite like we think they did. That they may have actually poured the stones and think of concrete, but at a higher level. So anyway. Anything else? I'm kind of getting to the point where I need to get going, guys. So don't want to drag this out too much longer. These 2 and 3 hour shows get long for everybody. So, but hopefully we covered what we needed to cover. Doesn't look like we had too many questions about the stuff I covered initially. So, Salish Sea. I'm trying to remember where that is. That's familiar. Oh, that's up there. Really? There's feet been washing ashore up here? Now, Whidbey Island Naval Air Station is right here. The missile launch point for the submarine is right here. The camera that caught it is right there. The submarine base is down here. So there's, I mean, this area is an area I'm very familiar with. That's right. That's where I know the Salish Sea from. So they're washing up. Are they washing up on Canada's waters or U.S.? I suppose I could see how some of the stuff from the tsunami could have gotten in here. But man, that'd be weird. But I mean, I'll tell you, this is one hell of a major shipping line. I mean, you've got Vancouver up here, you've got Bellingham, you've got Everett, you've got, let me turn this crap off so you can see. You've got Tacoma, Olympia, Seattle. Every one of these has its port, and all of them has to come through here. So I'll have to keep my eyes peeled. I haven't seen anything about it. So that I would think that would be fairly big news, but I'll go do some digging and see what I find. Thank you. That'll be interesting. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. Hopefully we all learned something. Hopefully everything made sense. So we will do this again next week. I'll pick the subject matter at some point. I don't want to do Atlantis right away because I'll be doing it again on Friday, like I said. So we'll stay away from that to a degree. But anyway, again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And we will do this again soon. And let me make this go away first here real fast. And anyway, it's been good seeing you guys. And have yourselves a good evening. Be safe this week. Keep your heads down. Don't buy into any of the BS that's going to be coming out everywhere, because it's going to be pretty aggressive this week. This week's going to be a big week. So we got a lot of markers coming this week. So it'll be same time, same place. So, just subscribe to my channel. I like to do it about 1 p.m. Pacific on Sundays. That's a good time for me. Lets me get woke up enough, get some things done before I sit down and burn a couple hours doing this. So thank you guys. Appreciate everything you guys are doing. Appreciate you're all following and asking questions and not getting upset with me when I tell you you're being silly or something, because sometimes I do that. And I really don't mean it that way, but, well, I do, but only if you're being silly. Anyway, I appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys later. Thank you.